Mojave, mo problems. Hi, let's not meet. Longest time lurker, first time poster. So, this happened in the summer of last year, but I thought you guys might appreciate hearing about it. Shortly after this incident, the camera I was using broke, but I managed to keep the memory card. So, I had a few pictures as well. Be wary on road trips in unfamiliar areas. Hubby and I were headed to Vegas for a second honeymoon. I got really sick on our first one, so we decided to give it another shot from our home in Los Angeles. And on the way there, we kept seeing these signs advertising a 50s diner somewhere along the way. Peggy Sue's, if I'm not mistaken. And we thought it sounded cute. However, we somehow missed the exit and promised each other we'd look for it on the way back. We proceeded to have a badass time in Vegas. I just turned 21, and on the way back, fighting massive hangovers, kept a lookout for the signs for the diner. We finally spotted one of the large signs on the side of the road, and it read Peggy Sue's 50s Diner or something similar to that. But beside it, a sign read, Next Exit. It looked different from the rest of the sign, but we were starving and excited that we actually found it, so we switched lanes and got off at the next exit. I honestly cannot recall the name of the town that we pulled up into, but it certainly didn't look like it could safely contain a residence, let alone a 50s diner. The houses we saw looked completely abandoned, but there were cars parked outside and newspapers on the driveway. The windows were either boarded up or broken, and the lawns were either completely overgrown or barren. We drove past a rundown gas station, empty-looking buildings, and abandoned stores before we finally found the exit. Living in LA, we were used to being wary of shady areas, so we didn't slow much the entire time, both of us on edge. We didn't see a single person the whole time. In retrospect, what we did next was pretty damn stupid, but we finally got out of that little place almost immediately after re-entering the freeway. There were more Peggy Sue signs. We saw yet another one with the same differently painted sign, claiming that the diner was at the next exit. Frustrated and convinced some dumbass had put a sign in the wrong place, we pulled off onto Calico Road. I remember the weirdest thing being the complete lack of life. There were no animals, or birds, or anything of the sort, and certainly no other cars or people to speak to. At this point, the sun was heading for the horizon, well on its way to disappearing. We kept looking for signs. We couldn't find any. We finally spotted what looked like a giant statue of a person, and kept driving. It turned out to be some huge lumberjack wooden thing, and if anyone who lives nearby would care to explain what the hell that thing is, feel free. Just standing by himself, in the middle of the desert road. We pulled up to see if had a sign that read, Calico Ghost Town, 3 miles and nothing else. Now, this is probably the part where a normal sane person would turn around and head back for the interstate. But my husband and I love creepy things. Places, movies, you name it. So we were stuck, deciding we should check it out before it got too dark. We started to head towards it. It was several long miles out into the empty desert roads. I was looking around and taking pictures the entire time, and trying to Google the place on my phone, of course. I didn't get any signal whatsoever, but that wasn't unusual, as the entire drive through the desert offered very little connection. We were driving for a while, and the entire time, we didn't see any other cars on the long open roads. It felt like I could see a mile behind a mile ahead of us. Finally, we saw a small white house and large wooden gates or something past the house, with a sign indicating the location of the ghost town. Cheering, I lifted my camera to take a picture of the place. As soon as I did, the car, which I should mention by the way, is a giant 2010 Silverado borrowed from the trip from my sister-in-law, jolted violently. I had been about to take a picture, so I heard the camera click as I stopped another one on accident as the car turned, spinning into the road. I remember screaming and dropping the camera into my lap, while my husband, showing off one of the qualities that makes me love him to death, remained completely calm, controlling the truck perfectly as it slid in the sand. After what felt like forever, but was probably only a few seconds, we skidded to a stop. I was damn near hyperventilating, and after making sure I was okay, he got out to look at the truck. He called for me to come look, and I hurried around to his side to assess the damage. The tire was shredded, but it looked like something large had done it. Panicked, we hurried back to the road to make sure we hadn't hit anything. Sitting there, in a perfect little line, were several large rocks, lined up neatly on the side of the road, precisely where one's tire would be. The smallest was about the size of your fist, the largest easily tripling that. There were a couple rocks scattered into the road, right over our truck's unmistakable tire tracks. Looking angry and scared at the same time, my husband kicked the rocks onto the side of the road, grunting angrily with each shove. That was enough for us. I stood there, just staring in shock. I remember thinking, why would someone intentionally do that? The next thing I knew, my husband was grabbing me by my arm and pulling me quickly back to the car, scanning the road and the gates ahead as he did. Again, looking back, I picked an awesome one, didn't I? He walked me to my side, and then hopped back in his. Without giving a shit about the car's condition, he hit the gas, and we rimmed it the fuck out of there, nubbing it back towards the highway. I snapped a picture of the rocks as we drove away. I wanted proof, but as we started to leave, things got really weird. The whole spin-out inspection had taken literally less than a minute, and it had taken us about 10 minutes to get there because we were driving pretty slowly to avoid, ironically, rocks that may have fallen into the road. But sure enough, the moment we drive around the turn to get the fuck away from the ghost town, there was a car on the road. It was not 30 seconds down the road, a beat-up red pickup truck. When I got closer, we saw an older man inside. He had to be at least in his 60s, white, gray, longish beard and a baseball cap. In the back seat were two very large dogs, one black, one a mix of browns. The man was watching us the entire time we got close, and I began to feel uncomfortable. Of course, my husband, being the kind of person he is, began to flag the man down and called him to warn him about the rocks. It wasn't just that, though. We both wanted to get a good look at this guy and make sure he knew it. The entire time, my husband's body was tense. I could tell he was just itching to hit the glass. The conversation wasn't significant. Something along the lines of, hey, watch out, there's some rocks in the road ahead. Oh, really? Where? Front gates of the town. Alright, thanks. I'll be careful. It took maybe 10 seconds. With a nod, my husband continued to drive, and I looked in the rearview mirror. I made eye contact with a man who was doing the same thing. I shivered and urged him to go faster, trying to find signal on my phone the entire time. I leaned out the window and snapped a picture of the tire. I have no idea why I kept taking pictures. I think it was keeping me calm and occupied at the time. I began to scroll through the photos I had taken, curious to see what the one I had taken when we spun out looked like. It wasn't anything particularly interesting. However, as neither myself nor my husband are in any way religious, nor do we think this was anything but a coincidence, but when I look at it, it was, of course, picture number 666, saved to that memory card. We finally got to the side of the freeway, and both of us finally began to relax. We began to change the spare, noting the hundreds of dollars worth of damage to the rim and other parts my husband was frantically naming. However, as we finally got into the car as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, we both agreed that getting the fuck out of that place, no matter what the damage of the truck was worth whatever would have happened had our suspicions about the man had been correct. We're going back to Vegas next month, and we plan to make an extra stop along the way. Hotel phone. My husband is a military man. We got married during his 2 weeks of leave between tech school and his deployment to South Korea. We had a short engagement, but I made the most of our forced separation and did all the wedding planning in a matter of 3 months. It was a nice outdoor ceremony in the spring at a park we had spent a lot of time at while we were dating. A pair of sandhill cranes showed up for the ceremony. It was quite lovely. The reception itself was a fun little affair, and before I knew it, we were off to our honeymoon hotel. We were putting off an official honeymoon, so this was like the pre-honeymoon, I guess. Waiting after his deployment. I would, after all, have a full year to plan it out. But this was just a thing, that I wanted to do for the sweetness of it. The motel had been provided by his stepsister. She worked for the chain, and had gotten us quite a discount. I was less than impressed when we arrived, however, as it was directly next to a pretty scummy strip joint on the county highway. The elevator to the room had mysterious puddles on the scuffed laminate tile, and the railing on the second-floor outdoor hallway was bent, probably too much drunken body stumbling against it. The door and window faced the strip club. The neon lights stretched fully around the top of the neighboring building, and it cast a red glow through the curtains. There was a very large mirror sticking at the wall across from the window, with a bed sandwiched between it. Nothing would kill my post-wedding glow. I was ecstatic to be alone with my husband. The night passed as you would expect, and in the morning, my husband had to go work at his recruiter's office. That work is what gave him 2 weeks of leave, instead of only a few days, so it was a necessary evil. I whiled away the morning running the TV in the background, as I opened cards and counted monetary gifts from all of our friends and relatives. I squirreled it away in a little zippered pouch, an unused makeup bag, in case I need to touch up at the reception. Sometime in the early afternoon, the hotel phone rang. I hadn't thought to tell any of our friends or family exactly where we were staying, as my husband had arranged for the room with his stepsister, so I was a little surprised. I thought perhaps someone was unable to attend and didn't have my cell number, had called the lobby looking for us to give us their well wishes. I picked up the dingy yellow phone out of its cradle. Hello? Hey, baby. An unfamiliar male voice filtered through the static. What are you doing all alone today? I'm sorry, who is this? I answered, unsure if it was a joke. I could come up there. We could have a good time. He crooned. I went to the window and closed the gap in the curtains, stretching the receiver cord over the bed, as far as it would go. What? I couldn't be clever. I was too unnerved. Yeah, baby. Let me up there, and I'll give you a free facial. His tone was becoming rougher, less suave. No, sorry. I don't think... Oh, come on, honey. We're gonna have a good time together. No, thank you. Click. I quickly deadbolted the door, took the phone cable out of the wall, turned off the television, put our monetary gifts and my ring in the safe, unplugged the bedside lamp and took it into the empty bathtub, where I spent the rest of the afternoon in total discomfort. I made my husband call my cell phone to prove it was him outside before I even let him into the room that evening. I was so friggin' paranoid. I never knew who the man was, or how he got the room phone number, or how he knew I was alone. He didn't call again, and we were able to switch our reservation to another hotel in the chain. That one, thankfully, was not next to a strip club. So, creepy, free facial guy. Let's not meet. Guy at the train station. This happened a couple years ago on our honeymoon. We couldn't afford a big expensive trip, and we live in the UK. So me, my husband, and 2-year-old daughter went down to London for a week to visit museums and generally explore and have fun. We were staying on the outskirts of London and getting the tube in each day, and it all was good and happy until we bumped into this particular individual one morning at the train station. We first noticed this guy because he was being very loud and sounded like some intoxicated asshole at 10 a.m. in the morning, but he was happily at the other end of the platform, and we didn't pay him too much attention until he made a beeline straight for my husband. This guy was big and stinking of booze and slurring his words. I was standing holding my hands with my husband, one hand on the pushchair with our daughter in it. he completely blanked me and my little girl, but instead, he started ranting to my husband at the top of his voice about how he had been arrested by the police for beating his wife and daughter, and how that was deeply unfair, and kept going on, and how men should be able to hit and beat their wives and children as much as they want, and trying to get my husband to agree with him. Luckily for me and our daughter, he was pointedly ignoring our existence, but getting more and more wound up at my husband, who was desperately attempting to pacify the guy. I'm so unashamed to say that my instincts to get our toddler away from him overcame my want to stay and protect my husband. I grabbed the pushchair and moved a couple of steps away. Then when the drunk guy didn't react, I quickly headed to the other end of the platform to try to get some help. Unfortunately for us, this is an unmanned station, so no one official to get help from. Also, everyone was determinedly ignoring the whole entire situation, which I guess it makes sense. Apart from one guy, who muttered, "For God's sakes," shut his paper and moved away from us, so no help there, right? So, I was desperately looking around for some help for my husband from this guy. Well, luckily, our train pulled in. My husband made some rapid excuses and then got us on the train. The drunk guy got on too, but thank God, not into our compartment, but we could hear him still swearing and shouting from where we were. We made a quick, discreet exit from the train at the next stop to give him the slip and waited for the next one. But it still chills me that he specifically targeted the only man on a platform with a woman and a young child with him, and how determined he was to try to get my husband to agree with him that he should be beating us.